pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wow, the pledge never sounded any better with you guys up there. That was awesome. Okay, quick announcement. There was an executive session before the meeting to discuss a personnel matter. So we have some visitors here today that I understand are going to want to sing for us. So, Mr. Lecter? I'll do that afterwards. Sir, the floor is yours.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and folks on the board. We would like to invite you to, if you would, come on and take the seats that we emptied, so we don't have to sing with our backs to you. Right?
Absolutely.
Today we are.
We're not on the board.
We can hear you. We get the other viewpoint.
I understand it's been videotaped and we should make it available. Mrs. Caseman, I'll leave these for you. These are extra programs I stole from the Capitol if the board would like to see them. All right? I mean, they said they gave them to us. They were just sitting on the side. Yes, they were. All right, so first thing we'd like to sing for you tonight is our rendition of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And this is a bass solo. Jack Fox is going to be our bass soloist. You want to go over there and grab that mic? Oh, yeah, I'll go to the back and turn it. I'm going to conduct from the back on this. And I think the rest sort of takes care of itself. I'll just say be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. Okay. Understand here. Hello.
Do
lot like Christmas.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Everywhere you go, take a look at the 5 and 10, glistening once again, with candy canes and silver lanes aglow.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Like Christmas. Toys in every store, but the prettiest sight to see is the holly that will be on your own front door. A pair of hop-along boots and a pistol that shoots is a wish of Barney and Ben.
Joseph will talk and we'll go for a walk is the hope of Janice and Jen.
And Mom and Dad can hardly wait for school to start again. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Everywhere you go, there's a tree in the Grand Hotel,
One in the park as well.
the sturdy kind that doesn't mind the snow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Soon the bells will start, and the thing that will make them ring is the carol that you sing right within your heart. A pair of hop-along boots and a pistol that shoots is the wish of Barney and Ben. Joseph will talk and we'll go for a walk is the hope of Janice and Jen. And Mom and Dad can hardly wait for school to start again. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Everywhere you go, there's a tree in the Grand Hotel,
One in the park as well.
the sturdy kind that doesn't mind the snow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Soon the bells will start, and the thing that will make them ring is the carol that you sing right within your heart. Right within your heart. In your heart.
All right, we'll do one more song for you. This is our arrangement of O Come All Ye Faithful, done in the style of pentatonics. If you have heard this new group that does vocal things with a jazz flair, that's what we'll do for you. Courtney Schreier will be our opening soloist, then we have some solo groups and some percussion. And once I start you, you really don't need me at all, do you? No. Very good. Sounds good. You stand dead center and sing really, really nicely, all right? Very good. Do it. And let it rip. You got some all. Okay. Is that jolly? Here we go. Nice job. 1, 2, 3.
Born for a king
go to Harrisburg and setting that up, and for being our Grinch, and for helping out the varsity singers so much. Sarah, our manager, has a presentation for you. Official varsity singer sweatshirt. You're an official member of the group. Rehearsal is tomorrow night. And
I've seen in my 21 years of being in public education, no finer quality music education program as we have in Quakertown. At the high school level, Mr. Leckner on the choral music side and Frank Parker on the band side just do a spectacular job. It was so cool. We were personally invited today to bring this group down to Harrisburg by the governor's office. It came, and it's amazing who you serenade and all that. Last year, we sang, the varsity singers sang, I did not sing. Though I was in something like this when I was in high school, go figure. It was called the Ensemble down in Cheltenham, and I sang it, and I loved it. But our varsity singers last year sang in the Rotunda as a guest of Senator Mensch last year. And the governor's office staff, we sang in the governor's office, went inside the inner office, took a picture, he wasn't in. But his staff heard and saw our singers and took down our names. I learned this today. And that's why we got the phone call, and the choir, the varsity singers went and sang for the Christmas tree lighting ceremony for the state, and it was beamed on PCN across the state today. And some of you might have seen it on Facebook because it went out that way. And we'll have it up on our website, won't we, Gary? So I was, it's a spectacular program. If you haven't been to the state capitol, I recommend you go there. It's a beautiful place to be. A lot of stuff that goes on there. Some things better there, but that's a different topic. But it was a beautiful place to sing and be heard, because it was really neat because there was some other church groups coming in, senior citizen church groups from today, and they were from Doylestown. And when I was up on the upper balcony looking down by the lieutenant governor's office and filming our group as we're warming up, I learned that there were a lot of Quakertown folks from that church group. So it was, you never know. These guys are true ambassadors for the school district. What you see is just one example of all the wonderful things that goes on day in and day out in our schools, pre-K through high school. So thank you very much for listening. Guys, I have a blast with you guys every time.
By the way, I saw all you guys on Channel 10.
Hello, Steve. That's nice. We have to go halfway.
Yeah. The guy that was playing the bongo or whatever, he wasn't as loud as him. Oh, now the fun begins.
Share the videos with Sue.
Oh, that was nice.
That was really good.
It's like this, I only start with a sheet on it. I don't use blankets. It has to be like
Today,
10 degrees.
my wife actually, my car is broken down, and actually my car is actually dead. I need to get a new one. And so my wife actually came to pick me up from work so I could be here on time. She picked Dave up from the bus and then cruised right down to work to pick me up after work so I could be here, you know, for the facilities meeting. I was still 10 minutes late. But so, she picked me up at McDonald's like on the way down, which was nice. Because I don't have a car, but at least I got to eat, like in the car, which was nice. Time and belt went, which means it's an engine damage.
State your name and area of residence. Okay, we are going to do a very fun thing right now, and that is we're going to reorganize before your very eyes. This is our reorganization meeting. The board is going to vote for the president, vice president, and assign the committee assignments for the following year. So what we're going to have here is, in a moment, I'm going to take nominations from the other board members for a temporary president to come to the mic and run the meeting during this process. What we're going to do then is take votes on president, vice president. Once that is accomplished, then the new president will take the helm of the meeting, and then we'll go through with committee assignments. Okay? So I just want to explain that for everybody. So at this time, what I'd like to do is ask for any nominations for the temporary president to run the reorganization meeting.
I would move that Mr. Klein continue on as temporary president for the elections. If I could get a second. Can I get a second? Yeah.
City president be the temporary president? Sure. Oh, okay.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. I guess you're stuck with me then. Okay. Just temporarily. Is that foreshadowing?
This thing was great.
Do we vote?
There's nothing to vote on
Yeah.
yet. There's nothing to vote on yet.
No, there's a motion.
The vote on the motion. So all in favor of keeping the president as the temporary president, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay. So the first thing I guess we're going to do is we are going to take nominations for president. And I think what happens, Mr. Garten, correct me if I'm wrong, if there's more than one nomination, they're voted on in the order that they're nominated, correct?
Correct.
And this will be a roll call vote. Okay? So I will open the floor to nominations for board president.
I would like to nominate Steve Klein for president. And David, I guess we just do president first?
President and then vice president, yeah.
I would second that motion by Mr. Kern.
Okay.
I would nominate Ron Jackson for president.
Is there a second?
Are you loud?
I can nominate myself, but everybody seems to be happy with Steve. Let's keep it going.
Okay, there is not a second apparently, so the motion fails. Any other nominations for president? Okay. We have a motion and a second, so there is now a roll call vote, Madam Secretary.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Akmanowitz,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. McCucci,
Yes.
Mr. Diliberto,
Yes.
Ms. Weed,
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Sure, why not?
Unanimous, motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Klein.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your confidence, I truly do.
No, no one else wants to do it, Steve. I'm kidding.
I thought of that, but I wasn't going to say that. Okay. All right, moving on now, we want to take nominations for vice president of the board.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Akmanowitz.
Second.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice president? Okay, we have a nomination and a second. Madam Secretary, would you take the vote, please?
Sorry, I'm a little behind you, but it's very slow tonight. Who was that made the motion?
Mr. Kern.
Kern.
And Jenny, we seconded it. Sorry, board docs is running a little slow today.
Slow. Sorry. Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Kern,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Akmanowitz,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. McCucci,
Yes.
Mr. Diliberto,
Yes.
Ms. Weed.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Congratulations, Mr. Achmanowitz.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. School board meeting options. Proposed meeting date options. Okay. Yeah. That's on the agenda next, so, okay. We're going to look at the schedule, the proposed schedule for the board meetings for next year. I don't know if you've all had a chance to review it. I have. Dr. Harner, would you like to discuss that at all?
Yes, sir. At the last board meeting, the board requested administration provide a recommendation of an alternative. Could we tee up the slide, please? So not that one. It's under the reorganization meeting. Brian? Anyway, for the audience, we have two options. Option A, which is the current system, where we have 2 meetings a month, except for the months of November, December, and June. Here, we are mixing it up, and when the board has its reorganization meeting in December, they approve the agenda for the next calendar year, not a school fiscal year. So it takes us to having only 1 meeting in January. Could you explode that up a little bit better so the folks in the audience can also see it? One of the things we were hoping that you would all be interested in being home on Valentine's Day.
Definitely.
So we would not have that. But next month, or excuse me, in February on the 11th, that Monday, we would have a meeting, and the only topic would be for the Act 33 hearing for Nidec Elementary School construction, which is a required state meeting. Would you briefly explain what that does?
The school code requires that the board conduct a public hearing to consider the propriety of a major expenditure, including additions or new buildings, which would obviously be one thing that NIDIC would be required to proceed. And basically, you notify the public, you go through a hearing where you justify the addition, you talk about costs, and you consider all the issues, and then that report of the public meeting together with your application is sent to PDE. So the public's invited, they'll have comment, and you'll have experts that'll be providing testimony. It's recorded with a stenographer, and the board, at least 5 members must be in attendance.
We, this year, since the board at the last meeting already approved that you would not consider exceptions for next academic year for our budget, we wouldn't need the second meeting in January. We would not need to talk about finances in February at the first meeting in February. So we had Valentine's Day off. You have your Act 34 hearing. March, the same thing, since the budget, I believe we're in a very good place unless something happens in Harrisburg that's way out of sync right now.
Well, you took care of that today, didn't you? You talked to the governor and...
Yes, we did not talk about the budget today. Well, just wish them a happy holiday.
Okay.
In April, having our 2 meetings, and then having our finance facilities meeting in May. So we would only have 1 board meeting, but we would have committee meetings in May. And then what we've been doing in June as a practice, we've canceled the second meeting of every June for the last 3 years. So we're just taking that off the table and not having that meeting. You get into August. We need to have the August 2 meetings because of the teachers and mostly teachers who we hire during the summer months. If they're tenured or they have contracts with other districts, they won't resign from those other districts until they have a board-approved contract. So we would need both meetings in August for some late hiring, and that's why we would have both meetings there. But having those hirings done by September So only one meeting in September and only one meeting in October. So basically, we've doubled the months now where we'd only have one meeting. So we're about 50-50. And I think it's a good, happy medium for going to one meeting a month versus not.
Well, I just want to, I mean, I'm all for it because I was in favor of going to the one meetings, but this ends up being, although there are committee meetings on some months, it really does almost end up being completely one meeting a month if you ignore the committee meetings for a second. And I just want to bring that to the attention of those board members who had concerns that we were limiting our exposure to the public questions, because that was the reason several members were objecting to the one meeting a month. So I'm all in favor of option B, but is everybody?
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Well,
That's next.
And the public can still come to the committee meetings, too.
Yeah.
They always can, yeah.
What it also does, it gives the more importance to the committee process, which is how the process is supposed to work. The committees are supposed to do the homework and then have an agreement at those committee meetings and bring their recommendation as board members to the whole board. And that gives, again, the greater importance back to your key meetings, facilities and finance, and then an education committee.
There's a meeting in May for finance and facilities both, but what happens if you're on both of those committees?
It'd be different times.
It will
Start
be.
times, yes, ma'am.
Different start times, okay.
Stayed a whole day.
Right?
Could happen.
It
Do
just
we-
feels really stripped down. But
Do we feel like, there are many nights that we're here pretty late. Do you feel pretty confident that we can still get through the amount of
Yes, ma'am.
information that we need to?
Again, the importance is that we have our committee process is strong.
Are we making the committee meetings longer then?
I would
Or-
think the discussions, and I think Mr. McCucci talked about it in the last board meeting, about it gives us more time in the committee meetings to really hash out.
I mean, I think, we need to spend a little bit more time in finance. The finances it's on
We don't make,
highway.
we don't make the meetings a certain length of time. It's just however long it takes to discuss the topic. So
Well, no.
it's not like we're artificially making the meetings long.
No, what I'm saying about finance is that we generally, it's right before this.
right, you get an hour.
No, I'm sorry.
Good or bad?
The last Thursday of the month, you have 1 hour. No, okay. And if you have a presentation or something like that, it ties up 45,
Well, or if you have an executive meeting, then that could be,
Yeah, tonight's a good example. I mean, we were
Right.
in a facilities committee meeting, there's an executive session, and that shortens up the meeting even more. So I think this would be a way to expand the committee meetings. If they need to go a little bit longer, there's not going to be an issue there with that.
And if you believe as as a board or as the board leadership, president, vice president, decide to have a meeting when it's not scheduled, then we just have to announce it in the media and have the meeting.
So we could have the Valentine's Day meeting.
Only if you bring chocolates and roses.
Promise.
Okay. Any other discussion on this then? No? Okay, so next would be approval of the board meeting schedule for 2019. Should we do this by option?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm reading that probably option B is the one that most people want, so I'm going to start with, do I have a motion to accept option B for the board schedule for 2019?
So moved.
Mr. Anderson, is there a second? Second. Mr. Jackson, we already had the discussion, so all in favor of adopting option B for our meetings, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. One nay and 8 ayes. The motion passes.
I know that it's a little bit late for this, but quick question on, since we are going to be limiting the meetings to fewer meetings, have we thought about how that could impact public comment? Like if we happen to go longer on some meetings, is that something that we've thought about? Not limiting
I
the
don't
amount
think
of
there was
time.
any, there was.
There's no limitation on public
No.
comment.
I know sometimes in the front end, if it's a sensitive topic, we might have a lot of public comment, and we might say, okay, we're gonna stop public comment now and come back to that.
Well,
So-
if we know that there's a lot of people that want to talk about something, because we did this with some of the meetings earlier in the year, we can shorten up if there's 30 people that have pre-signed up.
In like the fewer minutes.
Right, exactly. We could go to like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, or whatever, that type of thing to just keep things moving,
Okay,
so.
okay,
And that would be done on an as-needed basis.
okay,
Okay,
sounds good.
all righty. Okay, the next organization item is elect one representative to the Upper Bucks County Technical School Joint Operating Committee. If I'm not mistaken, it was actually Mr. Achmanowicz's term who's up.
Oh, that's horrible. I really want to stay.
Okay. And I thought that, sir, so.
I thought it was 2 consecutive terms, I thought. Or is it the seat?
It was the seat, actually.
Okay.
So that was up in 2018. I know mine's up in 2020, and Mitch is 2019 or 2020. So
it's my seat. I'm leaving.
Okay, if you want it, it's yours.
Oh, no.
Can we nominate David to have the seat back?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, this isn't a nomination. This is I actually assign people, so.
Oh, I would like you to assign
Oh,
David.
I would second that motion.
My apologies, I was corrected. Yes, we actually do. So we have a nomination by Mr. Kern for Mr. Achmanowitz. Okay. Ms. Mitchell seconds it. Just take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And next, we're going to elect a representative to serve as PSB liaison for 2019.
I nominate Ron Jackson.
That's Ron.
That's
Yeah.
Ron.
I
Okay.
renominate him.
Mr. McCucci,
I'll second that.
Mr. Anderson. Discussion?
Do you want to still do it, Ron?
I was gonna ask too, yeah, good.
Just checking.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Pardon?
Motion and seconded.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought I was missing something. Okay, next comes to the ad hoc committees. I wasn't sure if I would be reelected president again, but I wanted to be prepared, so I actually came up with a list and I went through the committees, and we have one board member who had yet to be assigned any committees, Mr. Diliberto, so thank you for sending me what your preferences were on those. So what I did is I came up with, I'm going to call it a balanced committee roster. There were some of us that were on as many as 4 committees and others that were only on 2. So what I tried to do was level it out and sort of knowing what you guys all kind of like and don't like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read what my suggestion is, okay? And then if anybody has any problems or they don't like it, let's discuss it, okay? Is that good for you guys? Okay. The Facilities Committee, Ms. Mitchell is the chair. That doesn't change. I would continue to serve on the committee, and Mr. Diliberto would now be on the committee. The Policy Committee, of course, it's the Lawyers Committee.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
With Mr. Kern and Mr. McCucci. Okay?
Sorry, Keith.
The Communications Committee, that's Mr. Kern's committee, okay? And Ms. Mitchell and Mr. McCucci are also on there, so I didn't change that.
We almost never meet, so don't worry.
Actually, I did.
Yeah, the policy committee is pretty easy too. Yeah.
The HR Committee, that's Mr. Jackson as chair and Jenny Weed, so I didn't change that.
We never meet though.
Right. You're not complaining, are you?
No, we never meet. That's a committee that doesn't meet, no.
That'll change eventually. The Education Committee meeting, Mr. Anderson as chair, Mr. Kern, and Mr. Akmanowitz. The Finance Committee, I'm suggesting Mr. Diliberto be the chair of that committee, Mr. Makuchi, if you're okay with that. And then also Mr. Jackson and Ms. Mitchell continue to serve on that. The Bucks County ICU, sorry, Mr. Jackson, that's all you. The Upper Bucks County Technical School, JOC, Mr. Anderson is on that, as am I, and Mr. Akmanowitz. And as the alternate, I thought Mr. Diliberto, since he expressed an interest in the tech school as well. This year, I think Mr. Kern only had to go once or twice anyway. And I think his car broke down each time, so whether or not he actually made it, I don't know.
That's far.
The Education Foundation meeting is Mr. Jackson. As the Legislative Committee, I thought Mr. Diliberto might want to take his hand at that as well. You'll pass?
Do we have anybody who wants to do the Ed Foundation? I'm always looking to pawn that one off.
Oh, okay.
What is it?
The Ed Foundation really is a private group of citizens and interested parties who try and raise money to help out teachers and other people who have brilliant ideas of how to better educate the kids. And they give out grants, usually about $500, what they call mini grants, and sometimes big donations to help curriculum needs. And it meets once every 2 months on the second Wednesday of every month. So the next one will be next Tuesday morning if you have time. It's always at Strayer, usually at Strayer, I should say. Is it here? Are you moving it now? Okay, so it's 7:30 to like about 9 every other Wednesday, every other month on a Wednesday morning. So, I mean, I'll go. I can make it, and I've got so many other standalone one-person committees. That's why it's.
I'd be interested in that, but the problem is the morning time.
I know. That's why I think that's why I'm defaulted.
Yeah.
No one else can make it at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Not every time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I try every year, and no one wants it.
Ron, I tried to pawn.
Well, it's during work hours, you
Yeah.
know, if you have to be somewhere.
Ron, I tried to pawn the Legislative Committee off on Mr. Diliberto. He refused.
What is that?
So you'll continue with that then?
What's that entail?
Okay. Legislative, that,
Really, I just like to keep everybody informed of what's happening at Harrisburg
yeah.
and nationally that affects us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in that, but if you enjoy that, you can.
Well, the thing is, the reason that works well for me is at the IU every month, we have an individual who gives us the legislative report, and she speaks directly to the people in Harrisburg on a daily basis. And she gives us a report there, a big list of all the bills and whatnot that are going. I've been recently putting that up on the public content websites for all to read, so that's kind of why it works out well, at least for me, because it's right in front of me.
Go for it.
okay. So is everybody okay with the assignments as?
How many people are on each of the committees?
It depends. Most committees have 3 people, other than there's one that has 2 people, the HR committee, and then some of the standalone committees that Mr. Jackson has.
Shouldn't the HR have 3? I mean, I don't think they have to by rote or nothing, but usually for purposes of discussion and agreement, 3 is a good number. I'm just saying, so HR ought to have a 3rd member, I would think.
We haven't met this year, but when contracts come up, we will.
Yeah.
So is that the purpose of, I guess, having 2 on that one is just because there's not a demand for
Right.
as much discussion? Okay,
Well, there haven't been any contracts, nothing.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Is anyone interested in being a 3rd on that?
Do I get any credits?
There you go.
I think his point is a good one, though. I think a 3rd person would be good.
Would you be interested in that,
Contracts
Mr.
are-
Akman?
Sure, I
Coming
can do
up.
something like that. It's right up my alley, I think.
Okay, any other comments on that, or is everything good? Okay.
I'd like to, how many people are on the facilities committee?
There's 3 people in the facilities committee.
So a fourth would be too many.
Not necessarily, I mean,
You can always attend if you want.
yeah.
Well, yeah, like the public can.
Always good to have a lawyer on the facilities committee.
Well,
Would you like to be a part of it? We can certainly put you on there if you want.
yeah, because my,
Yeah, there you go.
They meet another day in the month.
I don't even have this on my resume, Todd, so yeah. I'm long past that.
Okay, you are on the facilities committee. Sir, I'll send you a email with the roster as it exists then. Pardon? Okay, you as well, just to double check. Okay, that brings us to approval of the minutes. So we need a motion to approve the minutes of the November 8th, 2018 meeting of the School Board Directors of the Quakertown Community School District.
So moved.
Mr. Anderson, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Weed, discussion? No discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to our first public comment of the evening. I know we've had a couple people that have signed up.
Michelle Henry.
Julia Henry, Strayer Middle School. Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. My family and I were so grateful when Dr. Harner agreed to the World Language Survey on November 17th, 2017, as well as all of the students. 678 QCSD 6th and 7th graders took the survey. According to the results provided to us by Dr. Harner, 14% of students taking the survey chose French as our first choice for a world language. That is 95 students. As we have mentioned, as a result of that survey, French was offered in a letter mailed to academically eligible students in February 2018. That letter was actually dated my 13th birthday. When I received the letter on my birthday offering French, it was honestly the best birthday present I could have asked for. In response to that letter, 58 students that are currently 7th and 8th graders at Strayer selected French 1 as their choice of language during the course selection process. 28 students selected German 1, 11 students selected German 2, 38 students selected Mandarin 1, and 7 students selected Mandarin 2. The Spanish numbers were not provided to us. Shortly after, all of the course selections were added into PowerSchool. Then, on May 31st, the parents of the 58 students that chose French were notified that it was canceled. We have been to 3 school board meetings since this happened. We still do not know nor understand how or why this happened. We were told over the summer when we asked that there was never a viable plan. Why and how would French get as far as being added onto 58 of our schedules? What was the plan that allowed French to be added as an option in the first place? For years, the QCSD administration repeatedly insisted that the reason that French is not offered is because there is no interest in French in the Quakertown Community School District. As the World Language Survey and the subsequent French 1 course enrollments show, the interest in French is alive and well in Quakertown, just like every other school district in Bucks and Montgomery County. The only difference is only 3 school districts in Bucks and Montgomery counties do not offer French: Bristol Township School District, Pottsgrove School District, and Quakertown Community School District. Bristol Township and Pottsgrove are not academically of the same caliber. A district and caliber of the caliber of QCSD should be on par with the rest of Bucks and Montgomery County. The strings program confuses me as a student. How many students have enrolled in strings? 58 enrolled in French with only 1 letter mailed. Can we please figure out a way to add French 1 to the 2019-2020 school year? I am willing to fundraise. We could do so many things if given the chance. I am willing to help to do whatever it takes. Please add a section of French 1 to the QCSD curriculum. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Ms. Henry.
Michelle Henry?
Hello again. Michelle Henry, Richland Township. Good evening. Thank you for listening. I want to give thanks to the many school board members that have reached out to me or to Julia and me since the last meeting. When you are elected to a position of responsibility within a school district, responding to your constituents might be timely, but it is important at the very least to let constituents know that you received their emails. And you did more than that. You let us as parents and students know that our voices are being heard. France ranks second for the total number of jobs in Pennsylvania with 49,091 jobs at 521 locations. China ranks 22nd for the total number of jobs in Pennsylvania with 2,594 jobs at 84 locations. One of the board members suggested that having a job at an international company in the U.S. only requires English. I found out that this is not accurate. Saint-Gobain, the number 3 French-owned firm in Pennsylvania, actually heard about how QCSD offered French in February only to take it away from 58 students a few months later. There have been several newspaper articles, so I think the word is getting out. And I have them, and I'll send them around when I'm done speaking. The human resource team at Saint-Gobain confirmed that French language skills are a preferred or plus for many jobs within the company. I also heard from Dina Pokadoff, the Director of Branding and Communication at Saint-Gobain. She stated, "From my personal experience," and this is a quote, "From my personal experience, the fact that I'm fluent in French was initially icing on the cake at my hiring, but since then has become a strategic asset as we work collaboratively with our French colleagues at our global headquarters in Paris." I was also contacted by Judith Ujubay, the executive director of the French American Chamber of Commerce, who replied, quote, "We would say that speaking and understanding French would be a tremendous asset when seeking employment with the U.S. affiliate of a French company." I also heard from someone named Chelsea Elzinga, who is a university professor, and this is a quote from her. "Finally, on a very practical note, during my master's program at Florida State University, I taught the elementary French sequence of courses to more than 200 university students. The difference between students who took advanced high school French and those who did not was so markedly obvious that I wondered sometimes if second language acquisition could feasibly be acquired within the extreme limitations of the university schedule. I believe the foundation of foreign language lies in our high schools, where consistent and individual attention is given to language learning." In terms of academics, it's my understanding that the school board gave Dr. Harner a goal of 65% college readiness by 2020, and we recently dropped from 36% to 30% college readiness. Although I know there are many, many extremely bright and very talented students in the district, the most recent data regarding the QCSD's overall college readiness is very concerning as both a parent and a taxpayer. Dr. Harner wanted to hire a Latin teacher back in 2015, but there were only about 9 certified Latin teachers in Pennsylvania, and they are already employed. At that time, as the Latin teacher was already budgeted, I suggested to Dr. Harner that a French program could give the same benefits of Latin and more. A student-centered approach would have come to the board, requested the Latin search be switched to French, and an exemplary French teacher could have been easily hired then. That would have been a student-centered approach. The entire French debacle, and yes, I'm calling it a debacle, has been quite the opposite of student-centered. French language instruction is proven to raise vocabulary and standardized test scores. For example, did you know that every single word in the English language that ends in tion, able, ible, ence, ent, ance, ant, ment, age, al, ude, ure, ive, and ies, every one of those words is actually a French word. Adding French to the QCSD curriculum is a viable strategy in a multi-pronged effort to combat low achievement and raise college readiness to 30%, from 30% to Dr. Harner's goal of 65%. As far as this district's budget, $100 million. Hiring a full-time French teacher would cost 1/10% of the budget. That's assuming the French teacher was full-time and being paid and $100,000. We only need a 0.5 French teacher to get a French program started next year. That is 1/20 of 1% of the budget. Adding a French program could be such a positive for QCSD. As Julia mentioned, we could garner community involvement. We could have fundraisers. We could do something to offset the costs. Please give us the opportunity. She's at the point where she's going to be in high school, so she has to figure out a way to get French in high school. You can't take it on an app. I know you said you didn't take a language your senior year because you had to take a math class. Imagine if you were told, oh, sorry, to take that math class on an app. Like, you can't learn that way. So we have to figure out, it's like, or is she just going to go to one of the charter schools so that she can get French, which is going to cost money anyway. So I'm not understanding why we can't get a 0.5 figured out. This has been years in the making. And I will end with, this is how you evolve as a school district. You don't shy away from reasonable requests. You don't shut down students that want to learn. You invest in students like this that have a passion to learn a subject that is readily available in all of our surrounding school districts except for Quakertown, Bristol, Borough, and Pottsgrove. You invest in students' quest for knowledge because they are the heart of this district, and we are nothing without the students. One last thing. The other day we were at church, and the deacon said something to the congregation. He said, look around here. A lot of us here have more yesterdays than tomorrows. And I thought about that. QCSD students have more tomorrows than yesterdays. Let's allow these students to learn something they are interested in to prepare for their long lifetime of tomorrows. Thank you.
Ms. Henry.
These are the three, there's 3 packets of papers, if you could each take one.
Okay, next is a follow-up to board member questions on student performance scores.
Yes, sir. Back in, I believe it was the end of September, beginning of October board meeting, Dr. Hoffman presented the performance scores from 3rd grade through the AP exams for the board, SAT, ACT also. There was a follow-up question from Mr. McCucci, who wanted to see it longitudinally. If we could put that presentation up, Brian, up on the screen, the one you had up before. The slideshow right there, and go to the first slide, or second slide, excuse me. And I will hand this off to briefly take you through it, Dr. Hoffman.
So I also had some questions. I just want to let you know that the state data is slowly coming out. So we have the new Future Ready Index, which was just released last week. So we do have principals digging through that, and I'll actually be at the IU tomorrow for a training on how to interpret some of those new results. So hoping to be able to bring that back to you also. And we're awaiting the public release of our district SPP results, which is the school performance profile. So we'll have that for you also. That's coming out in the afternoon of December 21st. So very timely, right before we leave for break. But what we do have for you to look at tonight is some longitudinal data over the last few years of how our cohorts of students are doing, moving through both math, RELA, and then we also have some science data. So I'm going to ask our supervisors to come up, and I think Greg Lesher is going to be first and take you through a brief presentation.
Good evening, everybody. So the data point you're seeing up here is math dibbles, which is new to, I think, everybody on the board and was not part of the previous presentation that Dr. Hoffman had. So dibbles is an assessment for K through 2 that is given 3 times a year, which is comprised of a battery of assessments within each grade level, anything ranging from computation to identifying the magnitude of numbers, next number fluency, identifying the missing number in a sequence, number identification as well. And in second grade is the only grade level that actually has more heavy applications embedded into the assessment. So the color coding scheme on this slide is consistent throughout my presentation and Ms. Oleska's as well. You'll notice that people view the data in many different ways. One is across a grade level over time, and the other is following a cohort over time. And the color coding scheme, if you look diagonally, is representing the cohort over the course of time. So if you look at the top portion of the chart there, you'll see that the piece that stands out to me the most is 2016-2017 for kindergarten. Seems to be a bit of an anomaly that popped up, but our students definitely rebounded over the course of the following year in first grade. The other piece I put up here as well on the bottom is a computation piece, which is only assessed in grades 1 and grade 2 on the dibbles. It is not assessed in kindergarten. And the focus within computation is within numbers from 0 through 20, addition and subtraction. And you'll note up here that while there was a slight dip from 2016-17 to 2017-18 for our first to then second graders, the bar actually changes each year, so the expectation for students in a 1-minute time frame adjusts. For example, in grade 1, if students can answer 7 math computation problems within 1 minute, they are considered to be at or above benchmark. What happens near the end of grade 2 is that it gets to 20. So students need to be able to answer 20 computational problems within 1 minute to be considered at or above benchmark by the end of grade 2. It's a similar approach to just the composite score, which is it compromises, it's a bunch of different assessments that combine for that score. Every individual assessment within each grade level, the bar adjusts over the course of time as well. So students are expected to be able to do more in the same time frame over time. Overall, grades K through 2 at this point we feel pretty good about where our kids are at. There's always room for improvement in any data point that we view, but we feel pretty good about grade K through 2. Next slide for PSSA. So PSSA. So this is an overview of the past 4 years. Just a couple pieces to point out to you to give you some context. One, in 2014-2015, that was the first year of the new PA Core PSSA assessment. So prior to that, the assessment was more of a skill-based assessment, and which then transitioned in 2014-15 to more of a heavy application word problem assessment for students, where many of the questions are aligned to multiple standards, whereas previously each question on the PSSA was aligned to one individual standard. In 2017-18, this past school year, the assessment changed again on students. So the weighting actually shifted pretty significantly. The test was shorter for students, which was a push from the state. But in doing that, the weighting for the open-ended questions on the math portion of the PSSA shifted from 17% of the weight to 25% of the weight. And just a quick history, that is an area where our students, if they struggled anywhere, they had struggled on open-ended questions the most throughout the new version of the PSSA and the previous. The color coding scheme here is the same, tracking the cohort over the course of time. You look at it at cross-grade level. You can look at it diagonally as well. The other piece to mention is that each grade level assesses students on standards clearly, but there are big domains that students are accountable for. So, for example, geometry, data and statistics and probability, numbers and operations, algebraic concepts. Within each one of those domains, each year, the weighting shifts as well. So a really good example is grade 6. So grade 6 in 2016-17, for the data analysis and statistics category or domain, there were 13 points that were allotted to that domain. Following school year, which is last year, there were only 8 points that were allotted to that domain. So we have shifting is happening within the weight of portions of the assessment, multiple choice, and open-ended, and also within each of those domains, it changes every year. The other piece to be aware of is that each grade level assessment is written on that grade level reading level. So the third grade math PSSA is written on a third grade reading level. So we start thinking about what happens if students aren't on grade level at that point in time. What impact does that have on them? As you can see, last year, it seems to be a big significant shift that's happening from 6th through 8th grade, where there is a significant drop. 4th grade stands out as well. That was consistent across the board from a science perspective, and also ELA 4th grade got hit pretty hard in our district. It was also hit pretty hard in the county as well, and speaking with supervisors of STEM or math across the county. One more piece to point out is on the bottom. So this could be a little bit confusing. So the data points in the bottom represent the percent of students in the current grades, in current 7th through 12th grade, who have passed the Keystone Algebra 1 exam. Sometimes folks look at this and they say, 7th grade, are you kidding me? Only 1% of our students have passed the Keystone exam in algebra? Yes, but only 4 of our students in 7th grade have already taken the Keystone Algebra 1 exam. So this is showing you the transition over time of where we currently land. So our current 12th graders, we have 72% who have passed the Keystone Algebra 1 exam at a proficient or advanced level. Our current 7th through 9th graders, so they all have taken the Keystone in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we have 98% of the students who have taken it the first time have passed it. Dr. Harner, would you like to shift to ELA, or? Yep.
Can we ask some questions?
Well, why don't you get both ELA and Matt done and
Sure.
open it up?
Hi, good evening. So if you could just switch, next slide, please. So I'll go into explaining the chart. It's the same color coding that Greg talked about with math. Similar to math as well, the Pennsylvania Common Core started, first year of assessment was 2014-15 with an increase in rigor and text complexity and expectations for our students. It's also similar to math, the test has changed with the Common Core over the year. 17-18 was the first year that mode-specific writing was not assessed. Instead, students are asked to respond to literature and determine the mode based on the prompt that they were given. So instead of write a narrative, here's your prompt, they're responding to literature and determining the mode on their own. Also, the weighting has shifted as well. So there was a decrease in conventions from 21 to 14% as far as the weighting on the test, and an increase, again, in the text-dependent analysis or the student writing. So, and that is similar to math, an area where students struggle. And then at the bottom, you'll see the Keystone average percentage passing rates for both 11th and 12th grade, our current 11th and 12th graders. So the first time students take it is in 10th grade.
Just to give you a quick overview of science, if you can go to the next slide, please. So science, PSSA is only taken in 4th and 8th grade. There was no major shift with the PA core that came into play for the standards for science. So it's identical to what it has been prior to the PA core being implemented in 2014-15. So if you'll notice that we had a bit of an issue in 2015-16. There was somewhat of a drop from the previous year from 80% to 69% in grade 8. And we've slowly making our way back up over the course of time there. Keystone biology, so you'll notice this as well with our current 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. 74% is where we currently stand with our graduating class this school year. We have actually 31% of our 9th graders last year have taken the Keystone biology exam, and every single student passed that exam. Keystone biology is a very intense assessment. Algebra 1 is actually considered a much easier assessment, much easier than the PSSA is. But there is a lot of heavy text. There's many definitions, and it's just a really tough test for our kid, the biology. But right now we're happy where we're at with 74%, which is well above state average for our current 12th graders.
Questions?
That completes the presentation, not the discussion, obviously.
Right.
So, I see a pretty consistent trend year to year here, following the nice color code. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that trend's down in most things. And basically what you're trying to point out to us is, hey, don't look too much and then it's down, because the tests have gotten harder and harder every year. Is that what I heard you say?
I'm just providing with the context that it does shift and it does get more difficult.
It's a moving target.
There is a concern that it's going down, though.
If I may answer that question historically, we had a similar chart that we put up here for the board 5 years ago. And the trend under the old standards was, by the time you left elementary school, performance in ELA, English Language Arts, our scores increased. And then it was the reverse for math. Our scores decreased. Here we're kind of level, kind of quasi-level with English Language Arts, but we continue to have the downward trend as we get more senior, as students go from 6th grade to 8th grade. That's one thing. Second thing, the Common Core came out in draft form in 2009. In our district, they were not introduced until the earliest was 14-15 or 15-16, and we did not until, if you back up one slide, please, Brian. It was not until the 16-17 school year, if you go back 2 more slides to math, or to the PSSA from there, right there, not until the 16-17 school year, that was the first school year that we had math-aligned textbooks for and a curriculum program for our K-5 students. We did it the first year in the 14-15 school year or 15-16 school year for middle school.
14-15 was a new middle school program that came into play.
And so textbooks were taking a long time out in the textbook industry to catch up to the Common Core. We were late to the game as a district in implementing the standards in the district, not until 14-15, 15-16, and whatnot. So that's the trend. The interesting piece that I find, and we can dig really into this and to explain, but as the students come in, say they're 38% in math, proficient or advanced for the 8th graders, the current 9th graders that are in the high school, by the time we get up there to their senior year, they have jumped and increased their readiness quite dramatically.
So a lot of this, if I may, I'm sorry,
Yes, sir.
did I interrupt you?
Please.
A lot of this really seems to be the transition in the Common Core. We got got a rebound period here kind of going on where everybody's trying to learn how to do the math the new way, and our scores are showing that. Is that my take? I'm trying to oversimplify this, I'm sure of it.
So let me just ask one question. Looking at these and the information you guys have at your hands, like I'm ready to panic. should we be panicking?
I think if you looked at the
honestly,
state averages.
I need to know, like, it's just not good.
Look
I
at
don't
this.
know, I'm just asking, I mean, you know, I understand there's a lot of reasons, and we're moving like, you know, the cups around with the balls underneath them. I just need to know, like, what are we doing because of this trend? Like,
So it's not good. That's the bottom line. It's
Right.
not good. We do look at county averages, state averages, similar schools, and we do find that we are in line with that trend. But of course, that doesn't necessarily make you feel any better, right? So you get that for a moment where you're saying, okay, we were at 38%, but so were a lot of other people. It kind of gives you a moment to reflect and say that it's not everything, you know, that we're doing. But at the same time, you know, I don't think that any of us find that acceptable. So, you know, we not really part of this presentation to get into all the things that we're doing, but we are working really hard, working with teachers in classrooms. We are confident that our curriculum is where it needs to be. We're happy with the resources that we have, and we're just moving towards supporting instruction and
Can you
seeing those
expand
numbers
on the
rise.
plan? Like, give us, like, are you lengthening classroom times for math, or what is the, like, going forward after seeing what's happened? Obviously, the change in the test is part of it, but like, what's going to help the kids improve? Like, if you look at the class 25, 26, like, across the board, like, all the scores are low. It looks like POF has like a 70, but everybody else is in the 40s. Like, what's different? Like, what can help everybody?
Well, I think if we knew that, we would probably be able to bottle it and sell it to help everybody else figure out exactly what it is that we can do. We have spent a lot of time, and Greg has spent a lot of time trying to figure out if it would be beneficial to have longer math periods, let's say in middle school, or more supports at the sixth grade center, and I believe it's Strayer, but I don't want to misspeak. They do have additional staff in IST roles supporting students who need extra help with math to help them get caught up. We have staff who is assigned to that this year, specifically to pull groups of students who have been identified as lacking skills, so they still go to their math class, but now for one period of a day, they also get additional support either on the computer or with a teacher for instruction, because part of this is that while we want to make sure that they're getting those seventh grade skills to be able to take the seventh grade test, if they weren't proficient in sixth grade or fifth grade or fourth grade, we also have all of those years to help catch up on during that same amount of time. So we are looking at ways to do that with the staff and the time that we have. It is difficult for some of our students who may also struggle in RELA because it is not a great motivator for a student who struggles to put them in more of what they struggle in, especially in middle school. So historically, we don't typically see a lot of academic increase by removing an elective that a student might like and saying, oh, you can't take art anymore, you need to take extra math. To a 11 or 12-year-old is usually not a great motivator. But for some students, you know, they are looking for extra help, and we do find that success. We purchased some additional software that we found to be helpful and that we are seeing great results with. So we're looking to expand that into additional grades and really just, supporting our teachers in whatever it is that they're reaching out to us that they need support with, whether it be the curriculum or additional resources or, classroom instruction ideas. Greg's been in a lot of classrooms this year trying to provide that support. So
We also have elementary coaches at the building level now that we're supporting heavily, so they have ground level supports more frequently on a daily basis, whether that's for planning, backwards designing from an assessment, supporting the students and the teachers in the classroom. Departmentalization has been a big thing that's happened this year. So in 4th and 5th grade, we threw out the idea of departmentalization where a teacher is responsible for one subject area as opposed to all 4 or 5. This way they can spend more time in focusing on the content, dig deeper, get a deeper understanding of it. That's basically almost across the board. We have that in 4th and 5th grade, and I think teachers teachers are appreciative of that measure and that effort, and they feel they actually can spend more time digging into the content and understanding the content too.
I was reading through, I noticed that in Harrisburg, they're changing the way that they're going to be rating school districts, and it's going to be less emphasis on the testing scores, is what I just read. I'm not sure if that's in a nutshell, but.
That's a
That's-
simple way of putting it, yes.
That's correct. It's still there, and it's there for federal accountability. And actually, if you log into the site, and Mr. Kern shared that, there's a little star on all the ones that count for federal accountability. But the state has decided to place a greater emphasis on some additional factors, such as career readiness, graduation rates, attendance, just to name a few. So it's definitely still there, and it's something that we need to pay attention to. And as I've said in previous reports, it's something we need to pay attention to because those, 62% are students or somebody's kids, and we want to make sure they have those skills. But in terms of what our state report card looks like, you're correct. It's a little less on that.
And here's the thing, I don't want us to, go overboard in trying to cater for these testing, because it's already stressful for a lot of the kids. And from what I'm reading, it doesn't necessarily mean that the kids are taking away less knowledge, because it seems like at least the amount of rigor that we're teaching is so much greater at this point. My biggest concern, though, just as a parent, is I feel like with the new curriculums that are somewhat forced on us by the state, we're trying to teach kids 10 different ways to solve an equation, and they just need to grasp 2 or 3. And teachers are then pressured, right, to have to try and teach all of these different concepts, and then the students walk away thinking, I can't even recall. It's just so much. So is that something that we, feel is contributing to maybe some of the, I'm not so much, I'm worried about the kids obviously retaining the knowledge to be successful humans, not as much as I really want these test scores to be great. So my first question is, do we feel like the students year over year are retaining and gaining more knowledge? And do you think that all of these different methods that we're trying to throw at the kids is a problem, and should we address that?
We have a new assessment platform that we've started with this year, and it really gives us a good gauge of students' understanding on skills. So basic skills as opposed to what the PSSA measures. And the data is pretty strong for where kids are at right now. I consistently hear stories from teachers around, yes, while the approach may be different and we're giving kids different options to solve a particular problem or do a particular operation, that they are able to identify 1 or 2 that they want to drive home. So I've been hearing stories left and right about how it's been supporting students in their understanding of number sense and fluency. Just takes time.
So are you still teaching like the, forget, the lattice method and that kind of
No
stuff?
lattice method.
There is no?
No lattice
Okay,
method.
what about division? How are you teaching division?
Every operation, they will learn the traditional algorithmic approach. They will learn it.
All right, because wherever I go, I have to teach kids math. It doesn't matter what school they're from, what grade they're in, it doesn't matter.
I just want to highlight one positive thing off of this chart. Hopefully everybody can glean the same thing. Mr. Akamanowicz is right in that the math chart is a little disheartening when you go annually it seems to be getting worse. And then as the cohort proceeds upwards in their grade level, they seem to be going down. But we're not sending kids out into the world at grade 8 or grade 3 or grade 4. We're graduating kids with a goal of 85% college and career ready, which we're not meeting. But every one of these slides shows us at least a 70% mark when the kids walk down the aisle. Now, I'm not going to say why that's the case or why it's not good enough or why they suddenly come in, but maybe we got a lot of kids who like to cram for their tests in their senior year. I'm just saying that.
Down to read 11 years.
That's right. Whatever is happening, the end result is still a good thing. And again, it's, I'm not poo-pooing it, Mr. Akawanowitz, but we need to do better through the years. But in the end, you should be at least happy to see that number, is what I'm saying.
Well, it's still 1 out of 4 that are not where they should be. That's a pretty high percentage, I think.
That's why I said we need to go to the 85 we promised.
It's not where it should be, but
Look at the 12-year, but if you want to do that comparison, then you have to go back and look at their time, their linear time to see where they were at, to see if that's even a good comparison, because you don't really know. We're just saying that compared to these numbers today, one's at 72%, the other's at 38%, but we don't know back 12 years from now what their numbers look like. So I think you have to kind of look at it linear like that. I guess I would just, I would say, I think you guys being alarmed is what's the most important thing, and I would see, what are the options on the table to fix it. It's scary to think that, the 38% is the grade, 8th grade. Because we may be looking at these numbers in 4 years, or a group of people will be looking at these numbers in 4 years, and it could be pretty bad.
I think we should always strive for excellence, but I just want to point out, if you do go to the Pennsylvania state averages, for instance, for 8th grade, advanced proficient, 31%, which leads me to believe this is a systemic issue. I just feel strongly that, thank goodness my son is good at math, because I can't even figure out how to teach it to him. I have to literally go on and figure out, and that's another problem, is you have parents who are struggling to help their students, be proficient in this. So anyway, I think we can simplify instruction to not throw so much at our kids and so many different methods of solving a problem. I think from what I've heard from teachers, they advocate for that as well.
From what I've seen today here in your presentation, and thank you for going through and doing this, it seems to me like there's a lot of different things that are affecting these numbers. Okay, I've heard what you guys have said. In your opinions, what are your biggest challenges to moving forward and moving these up?
I think the biggest challenge for anybody who is in a classroom is how do you differentiate for the many different levels that you have in your room. So for kids who are coming in with holes and gaps in understanding, and then you may have students who are on grade level or ahead of the game, how do we support a teacher in navigating that? Which is the question we bounce back and forth every day when we're meeting as a team or with building principals or the coaches in a building, is every teacher needs something different based on who sits in front of them, and trying to find out what that answer is for that individual is the best route to go.
Would more support staff be helpful in that capacity for the teachers? Would it have a direct result on improved learning?
Support staff or more teachers?
Well, support staff, the teacher, the secondary teacher in the classroom, maybe they float between two classrooms, half period, half period. I know in some of my older schools, we had non-teachers in the room to help the teachers.
The TA.
Yeah, teacher's assistant. Thank you so much.
One of the best practices that's we've moved to the model just within the last couple of years is our coaching model in the elementary school, and maybe you all considering having coaches in the middle school. I know when I was a middle school principal, I was able to given 2 FTEs, 2 positions when I could hire coaches for both math and science and English and reading and social studies, and they would help the classroom teachers as we've moved to that model in elementary school. To answer Mr. McCucci, should we panic? No, but we need to have a sense of urgency throughout the district for what it is. I also like you to think about the old scores. We used to look a lot better, but the old scores were not aligned for college readiness. The Common Core, the whole design of the curriculum from kindergarten up to 12th through 12th grade was designed for a student to graduate and be prepared for college level freshman work. And if you look at some of our statistics, if you go back 5 years, and my first couple blogs I put out there, I went back 5 years for our graduates from 2007 to 11, and we were only graduating 19 to 26% of our students in over those 5 years from college in 4 years. Only 19 to 26%. And that's a very small number. Here, predictably, we're at 38% that are on track for 8th grade math for college readiness. Math has always been the linchpin for success for students. That's why for the last 5 years, I've talked to parents and to the board about getting a student calculus. Now, that sounds like a big hurdle, but the best predictor out there of a student getting being successful in their freshman year is getting a B in standard high school calculus. And also the national experts and National Council of Teachers Mathematics saying the course that a student should be taking in 8th grade is Algebra 1. The Common Core, about 60% of the 8th grade curriculum, about 60% is Algebra 1. Still shy of all of Algebra 1. And so we've been working backwards from that. Coming out of the other end at the high school, we've increased our success rate, participation rate. I know we were down, someone mentioned it, I think you, Mr. Akmanowitz, I know someone mentioned an email about dropping for the from 36% for the class of 2017, 36% college ready down to 30%, and that's measured by taking at least one AP course and passing the exam. And that was a dip. That was a part of the class personality, the class, what they didn't take when they were in high school. And as we get them to take a more rigorous curriculum in high school, the more rigorous curriculum in middle school, and do the work, the better they score. Better SATs go up as a group. Our SATs have gone up. Our performance has gone up fourfold in participation rate and success rates in advanced placement. So there's a lot of positiveness out there. But if you're looking at that number right there, math 38%, that means 38% of our students right now are predicted to be successful freshman year. Well, that's 10, 12, at least 12% over where it was some years ago, because that's college aligned. The other PSSA scores aren't. And that's right around the state average. And we were right around the state average before. So we have just a lot of work to do. And by asking the question, it gives us the opportunity to put it out there and to all come together, teachers, principals, the board, and agreeing what that is that we do.
You had said that the college readiness was based on their AP things, but the college readiness, according to the decision book, is based on their SATs and their ACT scores, and that's at 30%.
Yes, and their scores go up when they take AP classes throughout. When they're actually taking more rigorous coursework, their intellect goes up. When they get to the AP test or to the SAT test, ACT, it goes up. Now, if I can give you a silver lining, yesterday the PSAT scores came in and David Finnerty reported out, gave me a little spreadsheet on it. 168 juniors took the PSAT, and we all know what the PSAT is, so I don't need to go through that. 9 juniors in the senior class, in the junior class performed in the 99th percentile. 9. Depending on the selection index cutoffs, we should have 3 to 6 juniors next year as at least national merit semifinalists. So that number is going up. So by offering these courses, our students are challenged and they're jumping up there. Our top scoring juniors scored a 1,500 out of 1,520 with a selection index of 225 and should definitely be a national merit finalist. 49 juniors scored at or above the 90th percentile. That's a great number. So there's a lot of good stuff going on, a lot of good instruction, quality instruction in the high school, taking the same kind of students and moving them forward. Down here for the sophomore class, because 100% of the sophomores take the exam unless they're out sick. 383 sophomores took the PSAT. 5 sophomores scored in the 99th percentile, while sophomores did not qualify for the National Merit Finalists because that's not something they offer. 3 sophomores definitely scored within the area that they would be considered. 60 sophomores, or 16%, scored in the 90th percentile across the country. So that's pretty darn good. 16%, and the mean score being 989 overall. And so we were rock solid. So as they take more rigorous curriculum, as you know, when you read more, you become a better reader.
Right.
You take more rigorous curriculum, you become a better student. You become a better student, well, getting back to the test, you're a better tested student. And so there's a lot of optimism out there, but when it comes to all the pre-work that goes on K-8, well, in K-12, we have a lot of work to do, but our K-8 work, we need a sense of urgency.
Yeah, and I think, I just want to point out that while that's really good, stressing this high-end performance all the time, moving the needle may not be making somebody who's just on the cusp of being decent or good a little bit better.
That's what.
And so, while it's fine to take all this AP stuff and, be on the advanced end of the scale, there's some kids probably like I was in high school that were sort of, middle of the road. If we push those just a little bit more, they may end up being more successful. We may see our numbers go. So I would just challenge you to think about those as well.
The whole design of those AP courses is to get every student who's planning to go to college, even if it's just the community college, to take a college level course, be it a dual credit course that we offer or an AP course. When it comes to conversations, parents at home looking at their own their children's PSSA scores, and they're saying, well, my child is basic or below basic. What kind of conversations are you going to have at home? Because there's a lot of responsibility should be back there, not just on us. And then should they go to the technical school?
Yeah.
And go the vocational route because their math scores aren't that strong, and predictively they got a lot of work to make up, and are they willing to do that in 9th and 10th, 11th grade?
Do you see any, just with your experience, any trends with kids at younger and younger grades getting the scores that they are, where they're becoming maybe more frustrated or disinterested or more sick days or truancies at a younger age? Because now they're getting scores back and they're saying, well, I'm scored in the 40th percentile.
We actually do look at, attendance and things like that, and I don't think we've seen any type of trend like that, fortunately. Certainly we could look again, but I don't think that's anything that we've seen. One piece that we didn't really mention that does affect us is the opt-outs. We have had a lot of students opt out, increasing numbers, particularly at Strayer last year, and in some of our grade levels, 7th grade, 8th grade. That does play a role because you're now looking at receiving a 0 for students if you get over that threshold, which we did. And so while that's certainly not the reason for all of the numbers, it's something to consider, that the more that we have students who don't take the test, we're already starting with a lower number to begin with. So just another one of the things we're looking at.
Certainly from a financial point of view, I know it's challenging in that we spend a lot of money on the kids, right? I don't know, 20-some thousand, 22,000 a pop. And we have, very high salaries. So if our average expenditures on our kids are, say, 40% greater than state average, but our proficiency is not 40% above state average, there's a discrepancy that I don't know what to do about, but other than point it out as a taxpayer, so to speak, but also just as a gut check. Like, what could we do with, let me ask this. So that's just one point. The other point I'd make is, given no constraints, i.e. Common Core, what would we do different? Now, maybe no one's thought of that because all we ever think about is how do we work within the constraints. But in other words, if we unshackled the teachers, if we unshackled the Office of Learning and you folks, and if we took away dictated Common Core and said, what would we do different to raise the children's score? A, could we raise their scores? Maybe they're maxed out performance-wise. Maybe it's not us. Or B, are there some things that we do differently and spend our resources and time and effort differently and not chase numbers that might actually be not benefiting us, because no one can prove that Common Core is the panacea to education. What if it's the exact opposite and we're just falling victim to poor ideas? You don't have to answer that today.
I don't know that anybody could.
You can ponder that.
We'll take a three-page essay tomorrow.
I would think that we have a routine conversation here at the board level to talk about what we're working on and your expectations, and then get other feedback from our faculty, from our principals, and have the conversation. And I appreciated being asked the question so we could provide this.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on, superintendent report. Sir, there's a board book study question?
Yes, sir. Mr. Anderson put out an email that shared with the entire board, I believe, that recommended a book. Just a couple years ago, we would have pick a book, the board member pick a book, the administration would pick the next book, then the board member would pick a book, and we would have a book study and have dinner and talk about it, obviously education related. And Mr. Anderson put a book out there that was Tom Kirsting's book.
Yes.
And that was called Disconnected. And that was one book as a recommendation. I was just curious if the board would like to get back into having dinner and discussion to talk about education and some of the research that's out there, and on something that you're interested in picking, or something that we think is appropriate for what.
Is that a book about how to make sure your device gets reconnected if you get disconnected? Probably not. No.
It's about kids being disconnected because they're on their cell phones all the time, and the effects of that.
And that could be a one-night discussion. We've had books where we've, as you know, because you've participated, that would go on for a couple months, talking about one book, and we take a couple chapters.
Well, this book's very short. It's about 95 pages. You can read it in one afternoon.
Would the board be interested in having a book study, starting a book study again? We meet for dinner somewhere and.
It's mandatory. Yeah, no.
As long as it's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory.
Okay.
No, not at all. And we would have 5 or 6 board members, I think, who would show up, and the cabinet team would show up, and we'd have a good, healthy discussion.
And we support local business, just saying.
And we did support you. You definitely did, Mr. Kern.
Some more than others.
Yes. No, I think that's a great idea. I mean, I'd be interested in reading this book, Disconnected. That piqued my interest when I first read about it.
Find a night, and we'll go out and get the book and find a night and begin this in January. Is that okay?
Sure.
Make it. We'll put some dates out.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we'll go purchase the book for everybody. It is a total of like $5.99 a book.
I was going to say, yeah, you don't need to purchase the book from taxpayers' money in my account.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I have a Kindle. I can get it on my Kindle. We're good.
Okay.
I'll buy my own too.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
That's it.
We don't want to appear to take a salary, even if it's $5.99.
All right, moving on to the student representative report, and Mr. Samuel Bart will be giving it. Welcome. You can tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would.
I'm a current junior at the high school, and I would like to study law as I go into college, and I'm looking forward to going to college and finishing out my high school career.
You know, we have a lawyer up here on the
Yeah,
board.
I know.
So.
That's both of them.
A couple of them, we're going to talk you out of that, but we'll talk later.
On to the school, I guess. So starting with sports, the bowling team is off to a 3-1 start with their season, which is good for them. They're continuing on with I believe they have an away game and then 2 home bowling matches at Earl Lane Bowl. The boys basketball team, at least the varsity team, starts their season tomorrow. They play Liberty High School at 7, and since it's their opening night, they're having a theme, which is whiteout. Girls basketball has already had their season underway. they're playing their games. Indoor track has their first meet at the arena up at Lehigh on the 15th, and that was for the boys. The girls are the Friday before that. And then they were hoping to go to, I believe, Ocean Breeze. It is a track up in Staten Island as a trip for those who do well at the league meets. Swimming is competing in a relay carnival at CB East tomorrow, and they'll kick off their season with their first home meet against Saucon Valley next week. Wrestling kicks off their season next Wednesday with their first tournament at Council Rock South against Council Rock South. And then, on a side note, another sport, right before we go on break, there will be a student versus staff basketball game at the high school. A lot of kids are hyped for.
Will we have EMS standing by?
Teachers.
We'll see. And then on to club activity. NHS will be holding the winter dance coming up in the later months, either January or February. And in a difference from norms, it will actually be a semi-formal and casual dance. The plan submitted by NHS is that the theme is Fire and Ice, and with every ticket sold, they will be selling a sponsored T-shirt that is either, I would assume, blue or red to match Fire or Ice. And they kept it semi-formal and casual. The explanation for that was to keep costs down because a lot of students felt the pressure. At least it was cited that a lot of the girls were feeling that they had to go out and buy a dress for every dance. So NHS thought that having a casual, semi-formal dance would kind of ease the tension on some of the more disadvantaged families within the district. Tonight, actually, was holiday trivia that supported Minithon. Maybe we'll find out the winner by the next board meeting. The choir will be holding concerts on the 18th and 20th of December. And one of my own clubs, FBLA, will be going to regionals at Del Val on the 19th.
Nice.
We'll be competing.
Please explain what that is, that acronym, and then also get into what you did last summer. I thought that would be fun for the board to hear.
So FBLA stands for Future Business Leaders of America, as Mr. Klein seems to know. It is essentially a group of students, and if you know what TSA is, the Technology Student Association, what they do is you go to regionals, you do events, and that's really event focused. FBLA takes that and expands upon it. We have business leaders come in, talk to us about the business world. We've had expansions as coming this weekend, I think, a certain group of FBLA students is going to the Phantoms game. But beforehand, they're getting a tour of the PP&L Center, and they'll be talking with certain people that work there about the financials of the PP&L Center. And then they'll be attending the game, which I believe is Teddy Bear Night. So they'll be throwing teddy bears and stuffed animals onto the ice with them. And then what I did over the summer was I went to the Lycoming Free Enterprise Week. Sponsored, the school brought in a representative from the organization, which was very gracious of them, because otherwise students like me wouldn't know about it. So they come in, they tell us about it. I decided to go. I went with 3 of my friends, and I believe 3 other students went as well. What we did there was, it was a week-long thing, and you basically sat through lectures from prominent business leaders. We sat through some lawyers. We sat through other business leaders. We listened to a CEO speak.
Boring, no.
We listened to a CEO speak, and in between, we also got to listen to some motivational speakers, because and I personally enjoyed the personal speakers. I had a connection with a few of them. But in between all that, we had the ability to run a business simulation. So we were kind of taught the ins and outs of business, and we were allowed to expand upon our knowledge and, as a group, run a company or feel what it would be like to. And it was just a great experience, and I would hope that more kids could go. And the Upper Bucks Chamber of Commerce is very gracious with their donations to allow students to go basically free of cost. So,
What kind of company did you run?
my chosen like sector they gave sectors was I was power tools, and we so our company we created an environmentally friendly bike chain cleaner, which was we found the market for it.
I didn't know
and
chains needed to be cleaned. Who knew?
It's a surprise. Well, one of the kids in our group seemed to think that it was a great idea, so and we kind of just rolled with it.
Sounds
But
like
I
fun.
believe that the others, my friends there was a whole bunch of different areas. There was clothing, there was just like technology, stuff like that. And you also had, besides running the company, you also had to build an advertising campaign for your product. So it was kind of dual things. You had to build an advertising campaign for your product and run the company. So it was a good mixture of both. So that was a great experience.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that. Moving back onto the school, varsity singers, which we had here earlier tonight, will be singing at the Quimpo Craft Fair on Saturday, and they'll be singing at 2 churches on Sunday. And then after that, they have 15 or more performances throughout the end of the month and throughout the holiday season. So they'll be really busy. Student Forum is continuing to hold their meetings, and they also, as well, continue to bring things back from the Student Forum and continue to make our school better little by little. If you don't know what Student Forum is, we send representatives, I believe it's 2 from the senior class, 2 from the junior class, and they go to a meeting of all the schools. Is it in the district, Mr. Harner, or is it's in the district?
County.
In the county. All the schools in the county come, they talk, they combine ideas, they do activities, and they find out like the differences, similarities between the school, what works, what doesn't, and then the students can bring it back and they can distribute those ideas and make the school better.
Mhm.
So that's a great thing. And then a little bit farther in the future, MLK Day of Service was like last year, the board knows we might have had some, I don't know, like quarrels with that, especially some people didn't like how we were treating it. But now it's been advertised and it's been open to the students that the school will be opening sign-ups for certain service hours, activities, and that started now. That it's been open to us for, I guess, a couple days now.
Mhm.
So now students have an avenue to actively participate to celebrate the life of Martin Luther King, and I personally believe that's a great idea. On to just the school, I guess Keystone testing was wrapping up this week, or at least a certain math or reading portion. SAT and ACT, the winter season is opening up, so a lot of juniors and seniors are getting ready to take their SATs and hopefully get good scores on them. And then a lot of the juniors, as was mentioned in the previous presentations, the PSAT scores came out. So a lot of the students are just waiting to get their scores back, and a lot of them are really happy to have taken it again and really go back through and take it. And then on a slightly sour note, an issue that's been seen in the school is it might have, as you've seen in the news, there's been a teen vaping problem throughout the United States. Within the school, I think it's been an issue. It's being addressed, but I feel like it needs to be addressed a little bit more, because when a running joke within the school is that why are there toilets in the jewel room, I think that's kind of a problem. If it's so commonplace that that's the thought. Like I hear kids who go in the bathroom and say, yeah, there's kids just camping out in the corners vaping. I think it needs to be cracked down a little bit more, because it's becoming a problem. And even since it's a nationwide problem, I think there's a lot more avenues to get things to help calm it down or even to eliminate it altogether. And I know we have programs for kids who are caught. They have nicotine, I guess they're nicotine like rehabilitation programs you go through. You kind of talk to people like once every Friday. But I feel like that's not enough. It's really not. Because the kids who do it, I personally know kids who have gotten caught and go through it. It doesn't really change their mindset. They're just ready to go back in and do it again. It's not really stopping anybody. So
Let me ask you a question, since you're a student and all that, and I commend you for bringing this up, by the way. Why do you think this has become such a big problem?
I think it's, now forgive me if I'm wrong here, but it's like back in the days it was like smoking. Smoking was cool, smoking was the thing that you could do if you were hip. I think that's kind of just become the new fad, the new thing. So it's really just, it's out there and kind of everybody wants to do it. It's a bigger thing than it needs to be. And I think we need to have dedicated talks. Like in health class, yeah, we learn about addiction, stuff like that. But we really need to dig in and let all the students know that there are negative effects related to this, and that we need to stop them from one continuing and one from ever starting. We learn about peer pressure, we learn about that stuff, but I think in an era where this is such a big deal that the FDA has to do guidelines to eliminate flavored products to stop marketing to kids, I think we need to make it a bigger deal once again to reinstate those things, say no to peer pressure, don't do this, addiction is bad, stuff like that. I think it needs to be reinstated over and over again, besides just my first year health class that I took freshman year.
Well, I know that this has been on Dr. Harney and the administration's radar, and you're right, it is getting worse, and I know that it's a bigger problem than just here. So I know that Dr. Harner's got some things up his sleeve that I'm sure he'll be working on in the future, but thank you for mentioning that. That's really important.
So can I ask a question? What do we, I mean, I think back when I was in high school, I think, every once in a while you walk in the bathroom and someone was smoking a cigarette and you knew it kind of stank. But now it sounds like it's a commonplace. Maybe that's not the right term, but kids seem to be chilling out more doing it.
If you mind if I interject here, like a pack of cigarettes, yeah, you could keep like one cigarette in your pocket or like in your backpack. If you've heard the statistic that one Juul pod is equivalent to a whole pack of cigarettes, imagine carrying a whole pack of cigarettes in your backpack or in your pocket. It's really obvious, right? Something about the size of maybe your pointer finger. I could slide that in my shirt pocket. I could put it in my pocket. I could put it in my pants pocket. Yeah. It's just so easily concealable now that it's just so easy for kids.
Oh, trust me, man. I see it all the time, and so I wear a hat. I'm in healthcare, so I work in emergency department. So I've seen plenty of them. I've seen the bad effects of them too, where little tiny kids get a hold of one and eat it. It's not real good. Nicotine overdoses is not something you want to see regularly. But I go back to so do we patrol them? Do we I don't know.
I'm surprised there's not like automatic surveillance equipment that would detect the steam cloud.
There is, sir.
And shriek something really loud and force them out of the bathroom.
We were looking to test drive and procure and test drive in one of the bathrooms a system that costs about $2,500 that pick up when vaping would happen and would alert our administrators and our security team and all that. But they went out of business. Literally, they went out of business. There's some of the things that I'm sure Sam can verify that, as he talks about, they're little tiny devices, and children stick them in places and keep them in places that patting down a student or that is suspected of vaping you wouldn't find. So we're in the process of picking up some wanding devices that can pick those things up, so we don't have an issue with touching a student. So that's one thing that we'll be doing here shortly. Also considering what other high schools do is charging a student. If you're caught vaping, you pay $50. The second time, $100. Third time, $150. And that's have you heard what schools?
Yes.
You've heard that?
Schools have done that, yeah.
High schools are doing that, and that's something that I know that in this school safety discussions, I prefer that we not just throw a whole bunch of ideas out to the board without using the committee process that we have, the parent committee process, and see what's acceptable to our parents to bring back to you all. But we're not just sitting still. There's a lot of healthy discussions. Mr. Finnerty asked for these wands, and sadly, I was doing that before when I was a high school principal back in the 90s for weapons. Now, they seem to be the same kind of device that they'd pick up a vaping thing that would be stuck down somebody's bra or in somebody's other places.
I mean, is this a metal detector?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. For what my opinion matters, the current status, I guess, if you get caught vaping, is I believe a suspension, and then you have to attend the nicotine program. As I mentioned earlier, the nicotine program doesn't really seem to work through a student's eyes. I don't really see kids stopping because of it. And to be honest, like, in middle school, getting suspended or getting a detention was like a big thing. Like, oh yeah, I really never want to do that. In the high school, it doesn't really seem to matter to kids. Like, they get suspended, they come back, and they're like, I don't really care. I get a detention. I don't really care. I just sit here for 2 hours, sit there, do nothing, go home. Doesn't matter to me. I feel like that a monetary fine or something that actually brings something down on the student that they can't really just brush off. I feel like that would have more of an impact than simply giving them a slap on the wrist saying you have to sit in this room for 2 hours and you have to talk to somebody about your addiction for 30 minutes a day.
We can make them write a 2-page report on the harms of vaping.
Yeah, you just...
Take forever.
With a pencil.
But I feel like you need a more substantial punishment that actually gets in the student's head and say, I don't want to do this again. Or at least, I don't want to do it on school grounds anymore.
Well, that's great perspective, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I won't tell you, back in the day, I used to police the cigarette smokers. We go make them put them out. But I had like big bodyguards with me because I'm small. But I had the football players. So we used to really go, yeah, we used to go into the bathrooms and make the kids put them out.
Were you a hall monitor?
No, it's just a dumbass high school kid.
A guy with some jock friends.
We used to call you guys narcs, by the way. So.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, is that your report, sir?
That would be the end of my report.
Okay, very good. Feel free to pack up and go if you have homework you need to do.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit late for me.
Thanks for being
past my bedtime already.
Yeah.
And
being patient and waiting.
And by the way, I don't know if you know this, we're neighbors.
Where?
Yeah, he looks really
Don't you know where he
excited
lives?
about
I didn't realize. I think it's been mentioned to me, but I
you
never
live on
really
Mayflower
knew where.
Drive.
Yeah, where do you?
Yeah, I'm on Pheasant Lane.
Yeah, where do you? Wait, so where from my house? I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know all the street names in my neighborhood.
Guys, we'll take this offline. Take this offline.
Move it on.
Anyway, thank you, neighbor.
Thank you.
I saw your dad back there, so. All righty, moving right along. Moves us to the standing committee reports. First up is the Facilities Committee. Ms. Mitchell.
Yes, we had a short meeting today, and so we had a couple of items on the list of discussion. The high school varsity baseball coach, came in to discuss some concerns with access to fields. Apparently, the baseball team used to have access to several fields, and now they only have access, at least as far as in the school district, one field in the high school. And if any of you know anything about Quakertown, it's a pretty swampy area, so it makes it really difficult. It limits the amount of time that the team is able to actually practice. So one of the things that the baseball coach asked us for was to take a look at investing in some of these cages. And so there's a couple of them that they're recommending, and this would be a short-term fix, and we need to somehow think about what we would do for a long-term fix, because it's important for us to make sure that we have an attractive program. And from what I hear, we have some up-and-coming baseball players, so we are taking a look at that. There's also a quarterly business review from Compass Group, And the purpose of that is to bring the users and the providers of custodial services together for a formal review to evaluate progress and identify future opportunities for improvement. And that's on board docs. There's really a whole presentation that kind of summarizes their quarterly review. And we also looked at the transition plan for clearing and cleaning Tohickon Valley Elementary in preparation for relocating Natick Elementary School to that building. And the plan would be for us to clear and clean the Tohickon Valley building this month. And that would occur over the holiday break, where facilities and custodial staff wouldn't need, do not need to be in their regularly assigned buildings. In January, the principal will assign the staff to a new room. And then February, March to May timeframe, facilities would meet with the staff to discuss the end-of-year packing, moving process, and give the teachers really all summer, as they normally would have, to get settled into their room. So we're taking a proactive approach with that. And last thing was an information item that Dewey Engineering would be providing us with a cost estimate. It's like a second look of the cost for the Natick renovation project. So that'll be coming soon. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell.
Unless anyone else had anything to add.
I don't think so. Okay, next, the Bucks County Intermediate Unit Number 22 report. Mr. Jackson.
To move these things along, I'll do the next three real quick for you. So the IU met the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I apologize for not adding in the awesome news and the legislative agenda that we passed, but nothing earth-shattering did occur. So we had this month off, so we'll be meeting again in January. Moving to the legislative report, apparently there was an election back in November, so the legislation hasn't done anything worth talking about. Moving on to the Ed Foundation. As I mentioned a second ago, the Ed Foundation meets next week on Wednesday morning, so once again, nothing to talk about yet. Next.
Okay, that would be Mr. Akmanowitz with the Upper Bucks County Technical School report.
I'll keep this really short, considering our meeting was canceled in November due to the
Yes.
weather. So I have nothing to report except for we did vote on our future plan for the next calendar year, the layout of our, I can't remember the official name of it, forgive me, but we voted on that online.
By email,
I don't know
yeah.
the results. Comprehensive.
Sir, it was a comprehensive plan.
Thank you. The comprehensive plan is what we're calling it.
And also, they got the report back on their 339. That was their every 5-year evaluation, and they passed with flying colors.
Good.
I worked extra hard at that.
And it shows. Thank you. All right, moving on to public comment on fiscal items being presented for a vote tonight. Okay, no public comment on fiscal items being presented for a vote tonight. That moves us to the fiscal agenda for June. First up is the Business Services Department is requesting approval for the Boucher and James bills list for June 2018, July, September 2018, and October 2018 as presented.
So moved.
You're not even waiting for the ask. You're just so moved. Okay. Do I have a second? Okay. Discussion. No discussion? All those in favor of accepting the fiscal agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Abstention here.
One abstention. So the motion passes unanimously with one abstention. Next is the fiscal consent agenda. There was an item on here about signatures needed in case the president changed. The president didn't change, so that is a moot point. Next is agreement with Lehigh University for graduation in 2019, and that's in the amount of $9,567.40. Moving on, we have approval for the room rental agreement with the Upper Bucks YMCA. The Business Services Department is requesting approval of room rental agreement with the Upper Bucks YMCA for the ESL Parent Group meeting in the amount of $320 to be held on Saturday, February 9th, 2019. Next is the Quakertown Community High School yearbook proposal from Jostens for 2020 to 2022. The Business Department recommends the approval of the Jostens yearbook proposal for the years 2020 to 2022. Pricing will remain at $65 for copy, and that is not an increase over the that's not an increase, excuse me. Next is approve the September 2018 Treasurers Report. Then approval of the agreement with the BCIU to issue annual homestead farmstead notices. The approval of the June 2018 to July and September 2018 and October 2018 bills lists. And approve the June 2018, October 2018 budget transfers. Do I have a motion to accept the fiscal consent agenda as presented?
I'll second it.
And Mr. Anderson. Discussion.
For any parents and faculty members still in the audience, I want to say thank you to Dr. Harner for getting graduation back at Stabler. I know that meant something to a lot of people, so well done.
Yeah.
I just had a question on one of the vendors. Willis, is that for our benefits? Is that who our partners, Willis Group?
Yeah, they're our broker for all of our like liability and general insurance.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the fiscal consent agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Next is public comment on the human resources items being presented for a vote tonight. No public comment? Okay. The human resources consent agenda. We have professional staff, unit pay, support staff, and substitute staff. Do I have a motion to accept the human resources consent agenda as accepted?
So moved.
Mr. Jackson. A second?
Second.
Ms. Weed. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Public comment on policies, program items being presented for a vote tonight. Okay. Policy and programs consent agenda. This is a motion to approve the 2019-20 Quakertown Community School District school calendar. The approval of the settlement agreement for student number 23964. Approve the attendance and conference for board director for Mr. Jackson. Okay, vote on the policy and programs consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Akmanowitz. Second?
I'll second.
Ms. Mitchell. Discussion.
Just one item on the calendar. Can we confirm that in 2020, the primary election is actually going to be in April?
It is?
It is because it's a presidential election year, and according to the information published on the Board of Elections website, Pennsylvania likes to have more of a say than if their
Oh, so they moved it up.
primary election is in mid-May, and so in presidential years, they move the primary back into April.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I was surprised when I looked at that. I had to then figure out why that was because it didn't make sense, but that was what I learned.
Also was the, for Mr. Jackson's approval for attendance at the National School Boards Association Conference. It's in Philadelphia, which is, travel costs are minimal down there. And if you have the time on the dates, it's in April, I believe.
It is. Oh, no, it's the end of March.
End of March. It might be worthy at least one day of your time to see what that's like, because there's thousands of people come in there and there's a lot of good workshops, and you just see the scope of your colleagues across the country and what they do in their national organization and the services they provide and the training.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have the motion in the second, correct? All those in favor of the policy and programs consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Informational items. The school district has accumulated an inventory of obsolete, non-working switches, and the technology department has been provided a purchase offer from the Cortec company for the inventory. This action is consistent with Board Policy 711 and past practices of the district maintaining a regular refresh of technology, ensuring functional and sustainable equipment for students, staff, and community use. The value given for the equipment is approximately $3,615. The 2018-2019 enrollment by month, November 2018 is out on Board Docs if you would like to look at it. There are no communication items. Are there any new items from the board?
Yes, I have something I wanted to share. This is something that Dave brought to our attention a while back, but it so happened to...
Compressor station.
Correct. Yeah, so I feel like a lot of people are not really aware of this, and this is pretty important. So if you've heard about the Adelphia Gateway, this is going to be a natural gas pipeline that's going to go north of us, and it's going to, from what I understand, be delivering natural gas to people in Chester County and some of the...
Marcus Hook.
Yeah, greater Philadelphia area, and some of it even to be taken out of state. So I'm not sure if you all are aware that this is going to be only about 1 mile from Trombowersville Elementary School. And the reason that this is a concern is this is normally recommended not to be around schools. It's recommended to be placed on 10 to 40 acres of property, yet this is going to sit on about 1 acre of property. It's really close to residential areas. In fact, there's a lot of different new developments, from what I understand, that are going to be built really close to this compressor station. Some of the risks that are involved to community members, and I guess my biggest concern, is leakage of methane, hazardous air pollutants, water contamination, disturbance of ecosystems and natural habitats. And unfortunately, this is a federal government decision, and so that does put us in a really difficult spot. It's technically located in West Rock Hill Township, but it's a stone throw away to Richland Township. Richland Township apparently, in some cases, I think people say got lucky, but I don't know that that's necessarily true, since you don't really get to have as much of a voice in that. So what I have a question, but I do want to encourage citizens who are concerned to reach out to your representatives, your legislators. There's also a page that you can go and put an e-comment, and that's on the FERC page, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And if you do any research on these natural gas compression stations, or just in general these pipelines, is that they tend to underestimate and underreport the amount of pollution that gets into the air, and this could get into our water quality. So it's just really, I mean, it seems like our hands are tied, but I am very much concerned that it's a land grab from federal government, and we take on all the risk. So my question is, as a school district, if there are any regulations that state that they, because I'm not sure if it's a regulation or if it's just a recommendation that they should not be within a mile of a school, is that something that we would be able to pursue in any way?
First of all, do you know what the township's reaction is to the placement?
Township has no reaction because unfortunately it's a federal project that they can't regulate.
The township taking an adversarial position, because just because it's a federal requirement doesn't mean you don't have rights to contest the placement. And it would make sense to me that if they are of a similar mind, that there be some coordination of efforts to determine what the appropriate steps would be to challenge if they're not following the regulations. So it would be helpful if I'll certainly have a conversation with, is it West Rock Hill?
Yeah.
It is.
With them to see whether or not they are actively involved or don't care.
Right out of a newspaper article, the township manager, Greg Lippincott, says a letter was written to the Federal Energy Regulation Commission to try and stop the deal.
Yeah.
So they're actively trying to put it.
A letter is meaningless.
They filed a motion of some sort as well. It says West Rock Hill files motion to intervene on pipeline project. Now, that was back in July. So I've tried to dig up as much as I can. It does seem like the residents are opposed. And that's mainly because you have residents who are living right 500 feet away from this thing whose property values are going to plummet.
Oh, yeah.
And they've saved their entire life, and retired, and now their properties are going to be worth nothing. So my take has been that they are not in favor of this.
What I will do is I'll get some more information about where the status is. I'll write to Dr. Harner, he can share that, and we'll see if they have anything that they want to, from us by way of assistance or whatever, and we'll report back.
Okay, great.
That would be great. And just so you put it in perspective, this could possibly put thousands of metric tons of methane in our air per year. So I take that pretty seriously.
I do want to point out that, people often say, well, it's a pipeline, the gas doesn't get out, but it's near the pumping stations. It's not the gas in the lines that you need to worry about. It's the gas they're burning to run the 4 industrial-sized diesel engines that are running the pump station. And that exhaust will be, my initial calculation was about 1.6 to 1.8 miles from Trumbuyersville. You say about a mile. I'd really like to know what it is. But that is really close considering... by my estimates, about 30 to 40% of the day, the wind is blowing in the direction of the school. So, that is what originally piqued my interest. And a neighbor that actually I heard her, she moved actually because the pumping station was going in.
About.
And she, me and her had some at-length discussion, and I'm glad that you brought this up again because it, back in September or whenever I brought it up originally, it didn't seem to get much attention, so thank you.
Absolutely. And these compression stations, they also need to ventilate, and that's also a big reason why it gets into the air.
I passed through one. My office is in Reading, so I go a lot of back roads ways because there's no main direct way to get from Quakertown to Reading, and I passed the Bechtelsville compression station, and not all the time, but there's times where you get a very heavy smell of natural gas. I mean, I'm driving in my car, and within a few minutes, it's like I'm looking for the gas leak, So, yeah, there's venting and other things going on. I often wondered, do they put that smell, because that's natural gas doesn't have a smell. I wondered if that's being done at the compressor station, and maybe that's why I'm smelling it, or is that actually natural gas that's escaped? So,
Spark arresters are good.
All righty then. Any other new board business?
Actually, I had a question. Given the time and how late the student presented, is there a reason why they can't go earlier in the meeting on a school night to kind of get them out? Okay.
Yeah,
reorganization. Okay, thanks.
I don't think we expected it to take that long on our analysis of the test scores either, so.
I have one question about the previous agenda item on Core Tech, the sale of the which I don't know if we ever voted on, by the way.
We agreed to go through with the sale.
Okay. My question, it says there was an inventory attached. There's no inventory attached. So I just wanted to point that out for everybody.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
It's only $3,600.
But what's on the inventory list? Now, your car's on there.
Thousands of laptops that aren't worth anything, probably.
Okay. This brings us to our last public comment of the evening. This is a general public comment. Yes, Ms. Henry?
Hello again. I just wanted to say, after looking in depth at the slides of the academic achievement, it's even more horrifying to me. It's very concerning. And you have a student who, and Julie is not the only one, but she would be embarrassed if I said this because she had to go because she has all this homework to do. She's one of your top students excelling in 8th grade. She's bringing your averages up. And she is saying, I know what I want to do, and I need to be in a French classroom, and I want it to be at Quakertown. That's what she's telling me. I want to stay at Quakertown, but I have to be in a French classroom. I can't, I thought it was going to happen in, middle school, but it didn't. So if it's not going to happen, let's start looking at charter schools. So, and I know that the word, when she talks to her friends, she is not the only one. So I just want you to be aware that students that are top-notch students are going to walk away. And like hearing all that conversation about, what's going on, why don't we spend some time figuring out how to create a good program to keep kids busy that would maybe spark some interest? You don't know who would be, interested in having the French culture at Quakertown High School, but if you spend some time to cultivate some positive things instead of being like, let's be proactive. You tell the kids at Richland, be proactive. How about if the district is proactive? Because you're going to have kids walking away. They're going to walk away, and your averages are going to go even lower. But, she did take that Algebra 1 Keystone as a 7th grader and pass with flying colors as a 7th grader. So I just wanted to bring that up, that they're really 1/20th of 1% of the budget, I think, is worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am. Okay, Ro, come on up.
Good evening, Mr. President. I am Ro Cubbage of Richland Township.
Welcome.
First, I'd like you to extend my thanks to Dr. Harner tonight. I am very pleased that we are going back to Stabler. And it was very nice of all of you to entertain the varsity singers tonight. This is my last varsity singer performance. And as such, I just wanted to tell you guys what it has meant for me to have 3 varsity singers and 2 other kids in the music program. I'm going to start with my 2 other kids. One was very painfully shy, not quite diagnosed by the district, but we worked with certain things to help her with that. And one of the best experiences she had was auditioning. She wasn't one of those kids who got an audition and got a part. She tried for 4 years and she got one at the end. But she kept singing, she kept trying. And it was a really good lesson for her to learn. One of the things Mr. Lechner does also is he takes those kids, and in her day, they went unmiked in their musicals. And I watched the girl tonight, and I watched her just belt it out. And I thought, that's what he does. He takes some of these kids who just don't have a voice, and they come out. And it is just so cool. Sam is now married, and her husband finished his his master's, and she is in her 4th year of teaching in inner city school, where they have about a 98% poverty rate. And I think part of that courage that she got as she was growing up was from that struggle, that it takes a struggle. They say one of the best things you can give a kid who's gifted is a struggle, a challenge, something that's really hard for them. Matt was my other kid who struggled. And let me tell you, I'm not sure if Mr. Lechner or Matt struggled more. He has some, he grows in his own pace, in his own way, in his own time, and it's really cool. But I got to visit his college campus this fall. And as I went up there, I watched him be nervous. I watched his friends invite him to do karaoke. And he's like, I can do this. And he pulled on that inner strength, and he went up there, and he did it. And I watched as this crowd of people cheered this kid. And I was like, that is amazing for this kid who really struggled to even develop a sense of socialization in 9th grade. to have come to that point. And Mr. Lechner actually noticed how he did that. Matt was one of the kids who got an award. So it's not just all the kids who are stellar in music who get them, but the kids who have really grown and earned it. Marissa has not only gone to Ireland, the Czech Republic, and Vietnam. This year, she will go to Germany, and yes, I am growing as a parent. She's going to Morocco. They don't have a music degree at her college, but they have a music program, and they travel. Poor Ranjan, he's stuck. Ranjan became me today. He is so funny. He went in and he plowed and he fought harder than hard. He's trying to study abroad. He wants to go to England. And as he wants to go to England, there are paperwork snafus between his being a scholarship student and them not having had his major at Leeds, England before, between the two schools. And so they're fighting with this. And he walked in and he's like, you need to do this. You just need to do this. That's it. You just really need to do this. And he's fighting so hard in major part because choir and his major directly conflict, and he cannot sing at college. So he wants to go over to Leeds Beckett, and he is fighting tooth and nail for it. He would have made me look tame today, I think. And finally, there's Dan. I watched Dan push through something this year that grown men would have had trouble standing up and singing at one of those performances. He had a health issue that can raise up to a pain level of 9. It was currently that evening on and off up to about a 4. And he went up to the Allen Organ concert and he sang like nothing was wrong. Life's going to send us a lot of tough moments. And I just wanted to thank you, because it's been my privilege to have Mr. Jonathan Lechner help us raise not just singers, but strong men and women. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
I'd just like to recognize Mr. Lechner one more time for that wonderful performance tonight. And I'm sure you just knocked him dead on Capitol Hill.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I was out there today. It was awesome. I got goosebumps listening to you guys warm up, and it was great. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, we have some calendar items. We have Thursday, December 6th. That's tonight. Okay.
That's right.
I got no calendar items.
Yeah. All right.
Holiday.
Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes, yes.
You too, sir.
Happy Hanukkah this week.